Last year in a small town, I crossed a line I can't explain. I was 32, hoping for a fresh start after my family fell apart. I thought a school counselor job in this quaint place, surrounded by fields and brick homes, would help me heal. It felt peaceful. But maybe I underestimated the shadows that lurked beneath the surface. One rainy evening, I was cleaning up the school basement. I stumbled upon a dusty box in the corner. Inside, I found an old journal. The pages were yellowed. The handwriting looked shaky. I felt a chill run down my spine as I flipped through the pages. The journal hinted at dark secrets about the town. I couldn't help but feel intrigued. That night, I started reading it. As I dug deeper into the journal, I noticed strange things happening with my students. A girl in 6th grade kept talking about her nightmares. One boy started shouting in class, his face white with fear. At first, I thought it was just childhood stress. Then one evening, a student told me he saw a dark figure at the end of his bed. He said it looked just like something from the journal. When I heard that, a cold fear settled in my stomach. In the following weeks, odd occurrences grew. I started hearing whispers at night when I was alone in my small house. Sometimes, I would wake up suddenly, my heart racing. I tried to convince myself it was just my mind playing tricks. One night, I saw something dart past my window. I brushed it off as my imagination. But something wasn't right. I saw fear in my students' eyes. It mixed with confusion. I started doubting my own sanity. Was this all just stress from my old life? Or was there something the town was hiding? I remember walking down the empty hallways late one night. I was getting ready for a meeting the next day. The flickering lights made the shadows dance around me. I felt like someone was watching me. My heart raced. I wanted to convince myself it was nothing. Then, I came face to face with the shadow from the journal. It stood there in the hallway, silent, just watching me. I wanted to turn and run, but my feet felt glued to the ground. At that moment, I knew I had crossed a line I couldn't explain. I turned to leave, but the journal's words echoed in my mind, hinting at the town's dark history. That night, I lay awake, asking myself if I was going crazy. I didn't know if the journal told the truth, or if it was just stories. I stepped closer to the light, trying to shake off the fear. But the chill stayed with me, a reminder of what I had uncovered. Then I heard a voice behind me. "Why are you here?" I froze. The hallway was empty. I stood there, my heart pounding, every nerve in my body on high alert. The voice sounded like it had materialized from thin air, and I wanted to convince myself it was just my imagination again. But there was something about the voice that felt very real. I slowly turned my head, half expecting to see the figure from the journal, but there was nothing. "Hello?" I called out, my voice shaking. Silence answered back, heavy and thick. The lights flickered again, casting shadows that seemed to whisper secrets in a language I didn't understand. I took an uneasy step forward, anxiety chasing me down the hallway. I thought about the journal. What had I uncovered that could provoke this presence? I recalled snippets of the entries I had read, warnings of a spirit that roamed the town, feeding on fear and confusion. The memories felt like chains, binding me to the truth that was growing darker with every page. Determined to get answers, I made my way to the teacher's lounge, the faint glow of a vending machine the only light in the room. I found my old laptop and opened it. I needed to go back to the journal's contents. Maybe there were clues hidden within the pages I had overlooked. As I typed away, I came across names mentioned in the journal. Some were familiar, but others were not. I felt a chill as I clicked on a local news site and saw an article. It was dated years ago, about a missing boy in this town. The details matched the descriptions in the journal. My stomach turned. Without thinking, I pulled out my phone and called the librarian. Before she answered, a flicker of movement caught my eye outside the window, making me drop my phone. I rushed over to the glass and peered out. The yard was dark, but there, briefly illuminated by the streetlight, was a little boy. He seemed to be running, his arms flailing as if he were trying to escape something. "Are you okay?" The librarian's voice snapped me back to reality. I gulped, my heart racing again. I stammered out my question about the journal, the missing boy, and the dark stories I had come across. "They say the boy was never found," she replied solemnly. "Some say he still roams the woods, unable to find peace. Those woods are cursed." I felt a shiver run down my spine. Cursed? People avoid those woods. They hear whispers, see shadows. If he's still out there, it's not just him. The darkness embraces many secrets. You should stop digging. I hung up, feeling a darkness close in on me. Just as I was about to process her words, I heard it again. That voice. "Turn around." I didn't want to, but my body didn't listen. I turned, and there it was again, the shadow from the hallway, now more defined, staring straight at me. Panic flooded my mind, and the room felt colder. Before I could react, everything went dark. When the lights flickered back on, I was still frozen in place. But the shadow was gone. I felt a burst of air rush past me, like a whisper had just fled the room. I scanned the corners of the teacher's lounge, searching for any sign of it, but there was nothing. Just the familiar hum of the vending machine and the rusty fridge in the corner. A thick tension hung in the air. I could feel it wrapping around me, squeezing the breath from my lungs. I stumbled back to my laptop, desperate for distraction. I needed to find something, anything, that could help me make sense of what was happening. The articles from the journal lingered in my mind, especially the ones about the missing boy. I began typing his name into the search bar, my fingers trembling. Each click of the keys felt like a countdown. I needed to know more. New results appeared. Old photos from families looking for him, blurry images of playgrounds filled with laughter and hope. I scrolled through, my heart racing wildly as I searched for a hint, a match. Suddenly I found another article. It was less recent, but the headline caught my eye. "Boy found dead near old woods." I opened it. The words blurred into each other as I read. A few sentences in, I discovered the boy's name, Jamie. My hands shook as I felt the connection snap into place. Jamie was the boy from the journal. But that wasn't all. The article mentioned a peculiar detail. Witnesses reported seeing a small figure in the woods just before the incident. My heart sank. I remembered the librarian's warning. There was something unnatural lingering there, something restless. I leaned back in my chair, feeling the full weight of what I was delving into. That's when I heard it again, the faintest sound, like a child weeping. It echoed from the direction of the doorway, barely audible over the hum of the fridge. I froze, hoping it was just my imagination. But then the sound grew louder, more distinct, a soft, pitiful cry. Against every instinct telling me to run, I stood up. I didn't want to, but compulsion pulled me forward. I reached the door and hesitated, my hand hovering over the knob. It felt cold against my skin. I took a deep breath and opened the door. The chill hit me immediately, wrapping around my ankles and creeping up my legs. The hall was empty, just shadows stretching around the corners like fingers reaching out to grab me. But the crying was clearer now, a soft echo that seemed to come from the direction of the woods behind the school. It was like a siren call, pulling me towards the back exit. I glanced back at the teacher's lounge, feeling the heavy weight of the dark secrets buried in those woods. If I followed that sound, I was crossing a line. But curiosity overwhelmed my fear, dragging me closer to the unknown. As I stepped outside, I felt a sudden rush of wind fierce enough to make me stumble. And then it hit me. I wasn't alone. I turned around, and there he was, a small figure standing by the edge of the woods. Jamie. But when I blinked, he was gone. I stood there, breath caught in my throat, staring at the spot where Jamie had been. My mind raced. Had I really seen him? Or was it another trick of the light? The crying continued, pulling me closer to the dark line of trees. Against my better judgment, I stepped toward the woods. The air shifted as I crossed into the shadows, and I felt the temperature drop even more. I didn't want to hear the voice in my head telling me to turn back. I needed answers. "Hello?" I called, my voice shaky. The only reply was the rustle of leaves and more soft sobbing. It grew louder as I stepped deeper into the woods. Each step felt heavier, like the ground itself was trying to hold me back. Then something caught my eye. A flash of white. I squinted through the shadows, finding what looked like a faded t-shirt, crumpled and tangled in the roots of a tree. I approached it, my heart thumping. As I knelt down to examine it, I felt a chill breeze swirl around me. The sobbing stopped abruptly, replaced by an eerie silence that made my skin crawl. I grabbed the shirt, and as I lifted it, I noticed something embroidered on the hem. It was a name. Jamie. Suddenly I heard laughter, soft at first, like children playing. I jerked my head up, confused. Was I losing my mind? The laughter echoed around me, blending with the fading whispers from moments before. It surrounded me, a cacophony of sound that felt sinister. "Jamie!" I shouted, desperation clawing at my voice. "Is that you?" But the laughter ceased, returning me to that haunting stillness. Without realizing it, I had moved deeper into the woods, the path ahead becoming darker, more twisted. Just as I considered turning back, I saw something glinting among the underbrush. I bent down to investigate, my heart racing with a mix of fear and fascination. It was a small toy, a rusted old truck, one wheel missing, half buried in the dirt. My stomach sank as I recognized it from the pictures I had seen in the articles. Jamie had loved that toy. And that was when I felt it, a rush of cold air behind me, a presence that made the hairs on my neck stand up. I slowly turned, and there it was again, the small figure. But this time, it stood closer, just within the shadows. I could see a small face, sunken and pale, staring straight at me. It was Jamie. I opened my mouth to scream, but only a whisper escaped as he raised a finger to his lips. The silence was thick, almost suffocating. "Help me," he mouthed, his eyes pleading. Before I could respond, the ground trembled beneath me. I stumbled as the woods around me seemed to shift, trees bending toward me like they were alive, blocking my way out. Panic surged through me. I turned back to Jamie, but he was gone again, vanished just like before. I stood alone, surrounded by dark trees and the weight of his desperate plea echoing in my mind. And then I realized I needed to get out before the woods swallowed me whole. With that thought, I raced toward what I hoped was the way back. But the sound of laughter returned, and suddenly, the forest didn't just feel alive, it felt hungry. I dashed forward, breathless, trying to shake the feeling of being watched. The laughter echoed around me, shrill and mocking. It was as if the trees themselves were laughing at my fear, twisting their branches in glee. I stumbled over roots that seemed to reach out, grasping at my ankles, hindering my escape. "Jamie!" I called again, desperate. "Where are you?" My voice cracked as I pushed deeper, realizing I had no idea where I was. Every shadow twisted ominously, and the air felt thick with secrets. Then I spotted another flash of white through the trees and froze. This time it was a small, tattered blanket. I recognized it immediately. I had seen it draped over Jamie's favorite chair in the old photos. My heart shattered like glass, a mix of hope and despair flooding me. I crawled to it, fingers trembling as I brushed the dirt away. But the moment my fingers touched the fabric, it warped beneath my touch, transforming in an instant. With a gasp, I pulled back to find a small, fragile hand reaching out from beneath the blanket. I recoiled, my heart racing, but the hand crawled toward me, too gaunt and too familiar. "Please," it whispered, barely audible. I recognized that voice. It was Jamie's. Just tell me what you need," I stammered, panic writhing in my chest, my feet rooted to the ground. The woods around me felt like a trap, closing in mercilessly. The hand reached out further, pulling itself from the earth. I barely had time to process the sight before a figure emerged. Jamie looked almost ethereal, as if he was part of the very shadows themselves. His body shimmered, fading and appearing, as if he were caught between this world and another. I can't go back," he murmured, his eyes wide and glassy. "They won't let me." "Who won't let you?" I asked, my voice trembling. For a moment, everything faltered. The haunting laughter disappeared, and an unbearable stillness enveloped us. "I'm trapped," he whispered, his face twisted in fear. "The woods, they take anyone who comes too close." Something behind him rustled, and I instinctively pressed back, the terror flooding me anew. "What do you want me to do?" I cried out. "There's a way," he said. A flicker of hope shone in his eyes. "You have to—" But before he could finish, a growl resonated from the trees, deep and menacing. A shadow emerged, creeping along the ground, a living darkness that crawled toward us. Jamie's face stripped of all color, and he glanced back toward the thicket, panic exploding in his gaze. "Run!" he screamed, the figure of the child dissolving before my eyes until he was just a whisper on the wind, vanishing into the abyss of the forest. I felt the ground shift beneath me, pulling me down as I turned and bolted. The laughter returned, louder now, layered with fury, as if the woods themselves were coming for me. Panic clawed at my chest like a beast. I stumbled, panting, uncertainty blurring my path. As I ran, I realized I wasn't just escaping the woods. I was running from the truth, something I might never uncover. Then, as I tore around a corner, I crashed into something solid. I looked up, breathless. Someone was standing there, shrouded in the darkness, watching me. And I couldn't shake the feeling that they knew everything. I stumbled backward, fear gripping my throat. The figure loomed above me, hidden behind shadowy branches. My first instinct was to flee, but I found myself frozen, fear and confusion battling within me. "Who are you?" I croaked, trying to keep my voice steady. The figure stepped forward, their face still concealed. "You shouldn't be here," they said, their voice low and gravelly. It sent a shiver down my spine. "This place isn't safe for you." "What do you mean?" I demanded, curiosity mingled with terror. I couldn't comprehend how I had ended up here, and hearing those words only deepened my unease. I wanted answers, but the instinct to run screamed at me louder. Suddenly the laughter returned, this time more sinister, echoing through the forest as if a hidden audience was relishing my fear. I glanced over my shoulder, anxiety taking root. The growl from before ghosted through the trees again, reminding me of the monstrous presence lurking. "Stay back!" I shouted, and for a fleeting moment I thought the figure might retreat. Instead, they advanced, revealing a rugged face framed by wild hair. Their eyes were sunken, filled with an intensity that caught me off guard. "This forest feeds on fear," they said. "It can smell it. You can't show weakness here. You're better off leaving." But leaving Jamie felt impossible. "I can't just abandon him." My voice trembled with desperation. "He needs me." "Is he really what you think he is?" the figure challenged, stepping closer. "The woods twist the truth. Jamie is trapped, yes, but there's more to it. You have to understand." I shook my head, refusing to believe. "No, he's my brother. I need or want?" The question hung in the air, sharp and unsettling. "Do you really know what it takes to bring him back?" I hesitated, the words hitting harder than I expected. What did I really know? The woods were alive with their own secrets, and my memories of Jamie were tangled now with fears I never dared voice. Then I felt it, a shift in the air. The shadows around us thickened, swelling with a dark energy. The growling morphed into a chorus, echoing endlessly, growing ever closer. I caught a glimmer of movement out of the corner of my eye, just beyond the trees. Something was out there, and it had picked up my scent. The figure clenched their jaw. "You need to trust me, or we won't get out of here alive." That's when I saw it. A mass of darkness, slithering and taking shape, creeping closer. I stumbled to my feet, adrenaline coursing through me. "What do we do?" "Follow me! There's a path!" the figure shouted, taking off into the thicket. I hesitated, torn between trusting this stranger and the urgency to find Jamie. But there was no time, and the darkness was closing in. I darted after them, heart racing, with only one thought pounding in my head. What had I stepped into? As I pushed deeper into the tangled forest, I realized this might not just be about saving Jamie anymore. The woods were alive, and they were hungry for something more than just fear. I sprinted after the figure, dodging branches that clawed at my arms like angry hands. The laughter faded behind us, but I could still feel its echo in the marrow of my bones. My breath came in ragged gasps, each step sending adrenaline coursing through my veins. "Quickly!" the figure urged, glancing back to ensure I was close. Their urgency sent a chill slithering down my spine. I wasn't just running from the darkness. I was racing toward something unknown. We veered off the faint path, branches snapping underfoot. I could barely keep up. "Where are we going?" I shouted, panic seeping into my voice. "To the clearing!" They spoke as if they were familiar with this place. Or maybe they were just as trapped as I was. Suddenly the shadows shifted around us, coiling like smoke and pulsing with a life of their own. I stumbled on a root, falling to my knees. The figure grabbed my arm, pulling me up with surprising strength. "No time!" they urged again, their voice laced with an urgency that was almost desperate now. I pushed myself forward, the ground streaming beneath my feet, and for a brief second the laughter morphed into a guttural growl. A darkness, more solid than shadow, lurked behind us, and a wave of dread crashed over me. I had to get Jamie out of here, but the more we ran, the further away he felt. As we broke through the last knot of trees, the clearing opened up before us like a vast mouth ready to swallow us whole. Moonlight drenched the space, illuminating a strange altar at its center. Fear twisted in my stomach as I stepped closer. "What is that?" The figure hesitated, then sighed. "It's a place of offerings. The forest demands them." Their gaze was intense, almost pained. "We have to do something to appease it, or we won't survive." An offering? What could I possibly give? I felt a wave of helplessness wash over me. I'm not just going to let it take something from me. It's not about what you give. It's about what you can face. Their eyes searched mine with a ferocity that made my heart race. "You need to confront your fears to save Jamie." I heard it again, that twisted growl, louder now. It echoed through the clearing, vibrating in my bones. All around me, the shadows pulsed with a life of their own. "What if I can't?" I whispered, dread wrapping itself around my heart. "Then we don't stand a chance," the figure said firmly. "You must know the truth of your brother and this forest, for your sake and his." As I looked around, the shadows seemed to creep closer. The air grew thick with an oppressive heaviness, thickening with every second. But the words caught in my throat. That's when I saw it. A flicker of movement beneath the altar, something shifting and writhing, a glimpse of my brother's face, a brief flash of Jamie looking terrified, trapped within a tangle of darkness. My heart lurched. "Jamie!" My voice broke with desperation. The woods had swallowed him whole, and I was standing at the precipice, teetering between hope and despair. "Face it!" the figure shouted, their voice snapping me back. "Or lose him!" The growl amplified, and I realized this was my moment. I had to step closer to the altar, to whatever awaited me, and confront the shadows that had come for Jamie. But I was terrified. I felt so alone. Then everything went dark. I gasped, my lungs burning as the darkness enveloped me. For a heartbeat, I felt weightless. Then, like a stone sinking in water, I was pulled into a cold, shadowy abyss. I reached out, fingers brushing against something damp and solid. Panic clawed at my throat as I tried to wrestle free. Where was my brother? "Jamie!" I yelled, my voice swallowed by the void. I felt a flicker of hope, but it quickly faded. I couldn't allow fear to control me. I had to find him. Gradually, shapes began to form in the darkness. Shadows twisted and churned, merging and separating like living fabric. I could sense a presence, something lurking among the shadows, watching me. "Jamie!" I called again, more fiercely this time. But only silence answered. Then, as if in response, a figure emerged. It was the same figure who had led me here, but distorted. Their features were obscured, and their voice echoed like a whisper in a cave. "You must face what you fear most." "What do you mean?" I demanded, voice trembling. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, peering into an abyss that threatened to swallow me whole. "Your fear is the key, the doorway to Jamie." My heart raced as fragments of memories flooded my mind, moments I had buried deep, times I had let my brother down, fears that had haunted us both. I had to confront these memories or risk losing him forever. "Show me!" I shouted, desperation bleeding into my tone. In that instant, the void shifted again. Images flickered before me like an old projector, each one more painful than the last. I saw Jamie standing alone in our backyard, calling for me to play, but I was busy with friends, too cool to hang out with my little brother. I felt hollow. Then it shifted, a schoolyard fight, where I stood by, too scared to step in when other kids were taunting him. Another crack in my heart. "Please, not this!" I cried out. "Leave him alone!" The shadows thickened, swallowing the memories, but not entirely. I staggered back as a new vision forced its way forward. A dark-eyed figure looming over Jamie, whispering terrible things. I instinctively lunged to shield my brother, but I couldn't reach him. "Stop!" I screamed. The shadow cackled, and the growl returned, vibrating through my bones. "You're too late!" "No!" I shoved against the void, trying to push it away. "I won't let you take him!" Suddenly, I felt a strange warmth spreading through the coldness around me. The shadows began to blur, losing their grip. I pressed forward, eyes locked on the figure of my brother, still trapped beneath the altar. "Jamie!" Just as my resolve peaked, the figure snapped back to life. "Face what you have run from, and you may save him." The words echoed, fading into a hum that pulsed with urgency. Before I could respond, the world turned again, plunging me into another darkness. But this time, I welcomed the challenge. If facing my past was what I needed to do to reach Jamie, then I would confront every fear, every regret. With a deep breath, I steeled myself. "I will fight for you, Jamie. I'm coming." And as those words left my lips, I felt a fierce light flicker to life inside me. The shadows quivered, and the way forward began to emerge. I was ready to confront what I needed to face, or lose Jamie forever. I stepped forward, heart pounding, each breath a battle against the shadows that crept around me. The light within me flickered like a flame caught in the wind, but I refused to let it die. The path ahead twisted and turned, growing brighter as I moved deeper into the darkness. I focused on Jamie, my brother, every moment I had taken for granted. The shadows parted, and an image loomed in front of me. It wasn't just a memory. It was the night everything changed. I recognized the worn-out treehouse in our old neighborhood, its rickety wood creaking under the weight of my guilt. I could almost smell the pine, the fresh autumn air mingling with hints of childhood laughter. But it felt wrong. The light in me flickered nervously. "Jamie," I called, but my voice felt foreign, muffled. I steadied myself and walked forward. That's when I saw it. A figure standing beside the treehouse's ladder, shadowy and monstrous. It was towering, dark fingers clutching the wood like claws. "Do you remember this?" The figure's voice slithered through the air, low and mocking. "You thought you could escape?" I felt a rush of anger. "Get away from him!" I shouted, even though Jamie was nowhere in sight. Did you think ignoring him would make it go away? The shadow taunted, its laughter slicing through the air. You abandoned him when he needed you most, and you still do. Stop! I lunged, but the shadow's presence pushed against me, a wall of ice and fear. My chest tightened as memories swelled once more. I was 6, and Jamie was crying over a broken toy. I'd walked past him, too focused on my own childish things. I was stupid, I whimpered, the words spilling out. I didn't mean to. Didn't mean to? The figure echoed, eyes burning. But you did. You were always too busy, always afraid of being seen with him. I didn't want to hurt him. My voice rose, desperation creeping in. He was my brother. I loved him. Yet you turned your back, the shadow said, shifting as if it were a swirling storm, reflecting my worst fears. You can't save him. You can't even save yourself. Suddenly, the image shifted. I was thrown into the next memory, a flash of Jamie's face as I walked away from our parents' argument. He looked so small, so helpless. I wanted to shield him, to tell him everything would be okay, but I was rooted in place, held back by my own cowardice. With a surge of strength, I shook off the weight of the shadow. I couldn't protect you, but I can now. I swiped my arm through the darkness, feeling its grip loosen for the first time. The figure shrieked, disintegrating momentarily before reforming. You think you can change the past? This is only the beginning. Fear thundered in my chest as the shadows began to swirl violently. A gust of wind tore through me, filling my lungs with the scent of decay. I felt the walls pressing in, whispering doubts. Still, I pushed forward with every ounce of strength. I will save him, I shouted into the chaos, determined, and then everything went dark again. But this time, I was ready. As the darkness consumed me, I felt a familiar warmth flicker inside, igniting like a fire. The shadows clawed at me, but I planted my feet firmly on the ground. I won't let you take him, I shouted defiantly. The void shook in response, and I felt the weight shift, transforming into something almost fluid. Suddenly, a flash of light burst through the darkness, enveloping me. In that moment, I was no longer lost. I was surrounded by a glowing aura that felt like Jamie's laughter, filling the silence. With newfound clarity, I envisioned my brother's face, the innocence of his childhood radiating with warmth. The memory ignited a fierce flame within me, driving back the shadows that writhed defiantly in the corners of this dark existence. Jamie, I'm coming. I called into the bright expanse, my voice steady. In response, the shadows convulsed violently, churning around me like a storm. I felt their anger, their accusations mingling with my memories, the broken toys, the distant cries, all the times I thought I was doing what was right by ignoring him. But now I knew better. I was ready to confront every ounce of my regret. I was scared, but not anymore. As I spoke, the shadows shrieked, the cacophony blurring into a chaotic whisper, drowning out my words. But I pushed forward. Fear won't bind me. In an explosive flash, the light erupted brighter, illuminating not just my surroundings, but the shadows themselves. They recoiled at the brightness, hissing and writhing. I felt that warmth flow through me, connecting me to Jamie's spirit. It urged me to step forward, deeper into the light enveloping everything. Then I saw it, a glimpse of Jamie trapped beneath a pile of darkness, eyes wide with hopelessness, as if he had been waiting for me. Please help me, he called, but his voice sounded distant, crushed beneath an immense weight. No! I screamed, charging forward. The path between us was littered with shadows, hooks of despair reaching out to snare me. I had moments to decide, stand ground and face this fear, or lose Jamie forever. Jamie, I whispered, focusing on him, on the love I had ignored for so long. Every memory, every moment I had turned away from him flooded my mind, but now they fueled my determination instead of shackling it. I won't leave you. I'll fight for you. The shadows surged at me, trying to snuff out the light within. But as they wrapped around me, I fed the warmth that flickered in my chest. It grew, radiating outward, pushing the darkness back piece by piece. I love you, Jamie. I won't let this consume us. With that declaration, the light expanded, piercing the thick shadows. The very fabric of darkness began to tear apart, revealing a crack of bright daylight. No! I could hear the bitter cries of the shadows echoing in a furious chorus. Jamie! I could finally reach him. I tore through the final barriers, feeling an electric energy course through me as I approached the figure buried beneath the dark mass. I focused on that love, the bond that had never truly faded, no matter how distant those moments felt. Then, with a final push, I dove into the darkness where he was trapped, reaching out my arms to him. I'm here! I'm here! For a moment everything froze. The shadows screamed, swirling violently, but my light broke through, piercing the barricade enveloping Jamie. I felt him grasp my hands, the weight of his fear melding under the warmth I offered. Let's go, I shouted, no longer caring for the darkness swirling around. Together we pulled away a shroud that had suffocated him for far too long. In an explosion of light so blinding it nearly knocked me off my feet, we broke free. The shadows shrieked one last time, retreating before the brilliance. And then we were falling, but I held Jamie tightly, my heart racing, as we tumbled through the void into the light above. When the ground met my feet, it felt like the wind had been knocked out of me. I gasped, blinking rapidly as the brightness faded, revealing a clearing bathed in moonlight. The heavy weight of silence surrounded us, but the shadows had vanished. I looked around, breathless. Jamie stood next to me, eyes wide and alive. You found me! There was wonder in his voice, and I couldn't help but smile through the tears rolling down my cheeks. Yes, I'm sorry I wasn't there before, I said. The memory's almost too painful to bear, but now they didn't bind me. I'm here now. But as I looked around, the warmth faded slightly, leaving an unsettling chill in my heart. The woods still loomed at the edges, a foreboding presence that felt very much alive. I turned back to Jamie, who looked as if he'd sensed it too. Are we safe? Jamie's voice was small. I think we're okay, but I don't know how we got here. We need to go. As we took tentative steps forward, the shadows lingered, teasing the edge of my periphery. I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't entirely over. There remained whispers on the winds, remnants of fears unspoken. Was it real? Jamie asked, looking up with wide eyes. I don't know, I replied honestly, glancing back toward the edge of the woods where darkness still congregated. But it felt real, and I can't forget it. As we walked into the night hand in hand, I knew I couldn't protect him from everything. The shadows were there, waiting, and I would never truly escape them. All I could do was face them when they returned. Together, we stepped into the uncertainty of morning, both scarred but unbroken, a bond remade and questions lingering in the wake. I moved to a new town weeks later, hoping for a fresh start. But sometimes, in quiet moments, I catch a glimpse of something dark in the corners of my vision. I still wonder about Jamie, the woods, and the dark things that might rise again. But mostly, I try not to think about it.